It's the Happy Families Podcast. It's the podcast for the time-poor parent who just wants answers now.
I still remember even talking about it right now, the feelings of peacefulness and the feelings of goodness. I mean, it's so simple. Bake some cookies, knock on a door, sing a couple of songs, have a chat. And yet it's just such a meaningful thing.
And now here's the stars of our show, my mum and dad.
Hello, this is Dr. Justin Coulson, the author of 6 books about raising happy families, and here for one of the last times this year with my wife Kylie, Mrs. Happy Families, mum to our 6 daughters.
Today's podcast is all about the meaning and magic of Christmas. It's my favourite time of year. And we decided that we'd do something a little bit different in this episode.
Yeah, so we've asked the Happy Families team to tell us their most magical Christmas stories. They've recorded voice memos for us, and I think, fingers crossed, that you're going to love these stories.
Maybe you might find a bit of inspiration, perhaps. Let's start off with our longest-serving staff member, Evelyn. Ev makes everything look amazing, from design, marketing, and she does so much in running our business. Her story is one that really emphasises generosity and sacrifice.
Hands down, my favourite Christmas as a kid was one when we decided that we would forego our presents from Santa, and instead each of us chose a family to put together a care package for. So we spent weeks putting together gifts and treats and trinkets for each of the families that we'd chosen. And on Christmas Eve, we went to each house and dropped off the packages that we'd made, knocked on the door and ran so that they didn't even know who the gifts had come from. Looking back now, it's really obvious to me that the families that we'd chosen were actually in a better financial position than we were, but our parents had given us a real gift that Christmas, and that was that we had the opportunity to learn how to think about others before ourselves.
Isn't Ev great? Caroline is our customer relationships and business development leader. Caroline is brand new to the Happy Families team, just joined in October, and she's made a great impact on how we do things.
Caroline's story is all about family.
The meaning of Christmas for me is being with family and friends. Having lived in many places around the world, I've had the chance to see how different cultures celebrate. Most recently, memorable Christmas would be when my mum came to spend Christmas with us in the Philippines. It was our first one there, and I found out at that time that I was pregnant with our second child. So it was pretty awesome being able to tell my mum the lovely news in person. Our most recent Christmas, we were moving back to Australia. We were lucky that my parents-in-law were able to fly up to be with us, and close friends of ours also invited us over to their place on Christmas Day, as we hadn't had a chance to organise anything at all. So that was a pretty lovely day with family and friends.
Craig Bruce has only just come on board as part of our team. He's our executive producer for the podcast.
Yeah, Craig's a guy that I always wanted to be like. When I used to be in radio, we were both in radio in a previous life, but Craig was kind of one of the biggest head honchos, one of the biggest radio megastars in the country while I was up and coming. And then, of course, I got off air, but he was an absolute superstar on air, and I just wanted to be like Craig Bruce when I turned on the microphone.
Craig has 4 daughters, and they feature heavily in his favourite Christmas memories.
4 daughters, our 6. Imagine if our 2 families got together, 10 daughters running around. Holy dooly.
Every Christmas in our house is special. The kids are older now, so there's a little less of that Santa magic. But what we always do, and this is driven by the kids, either on Christmas Eve or Christmas morning, is to sit down and watch old videos of previous Christmas days. So we have 4 girls, and they just love it. Watching them see themselves as young children and toddlers and babies is fantastic. There's something just magical about it. And I think every Christmas it kind of reminds us of how lucky we are. You know, we see ourselves, and we are always surrounded by the people we love, and you know, we're big animal lovers, so we see all of our pets, and seeing everyone together healthy and happy is pretty special.
Hey Craig, thanks so much for sharing that. We've got a bunch of videos on our phones, but we've never actually put it all together like that, and I just think it would be so cool to watch through the TV on Christmas Day. Cool tradition, great memories.
We'll be back with a few more just after the break.
It's the Happy Families Podcast.
Are screens creating tension at home?
Tweens, Teens and Screens is a webinar to guide families to healthy, safe, super screen solutions. Buy it today at happyfamilies.com.au/shop.
It's a Happy Families podcast. We're getting Christmas inspiration to make your family happier this Christmas.
And there are 3 more people in the Happy Families team. It's amazing how many people are required to make Happy Families work. And we've had such an amazing year. We are so grateful to our team for doing this. So we've heard from Ev, who looks after design and marketing and everything. We've heard from Caroline, who really does such a great job with our customers and our business development in terms of the speaking that I do around the country. And our executive producer, Craig Bruce, we've heard from him. But now, 3 more people in the team to hear from. First up, we've got Elizabeth. Elizabeth is our admin and office manager, and I like her story because she reflects on the difference that generous parents can make when it comes to making Christmas magic and memorable.
When I was little, my family didn't have a lot of money. I was the youngest of 7 kids, and my mum would get really creative with making their money go far. And one year right before Christmas, it was actually around September, October, my mum had booked a family holiday on Stradbroke Island, and that was going to be our Christmas event for the year. We were going at that time because it was cheaper than going at Christmas, but none of the kids knew about the booking. And one day on our doorstep, this hamper arrived, and it was this big surprise, and it had all these delicious treats in it, and it had a special note saying that something exciting was coming. And every day for weeks, we would get a new surprise on the door that would lead up to telling us what was happening. And we'd get different presents or different baked things, and it was so exciting, and none of the kids had any idea what was happening, but we would get new clues every day. And eventually, when all of that ended, we found out that we were going on this big holiday to Stradbroke, which was a really big deal for our family. And we all got bags full of presents and things to take with us on the holiday, and it was just the most amazing thing that my mum ever did for us, because it was magical and it was all about family, and none of us have ever forgot it, and we've never had anything as amazing as that.
What's so awesome about this is that the parents have sacrificed and the kids actually recognised it.
Yeah. That's what we all want our kids to do, right? To remember that we gave stuff up. We worked hard so that they could have a magical Christmas. Okay, so Abby is Evelyn's assistant. She's doing so many back-end tasks. It's amazing. Let's hear Abby's story.
When I was about 10 years old, a family friend of ours, they rallied my sister and I to join them in doing what we know as the 12 Nights of Christmas. And so basically what they did is they picked 3 to 4 families, and we would together make or buy special gifts that represented something to do with Christmas to leave on these families' doorstep each night. So these gifts were homemade. They weren't very special or amazing. I remember 12 bells for their Christmas tree, maybe 11 candles, 5 mangoes, 4 ginger beers, etc., as it kind of moved down slowly to the night before Christmas. So our friends would come and pick us up at midnight, and I remember thinking at 10 years old, like, oh, this is so cool. I can't believe my parents letting me do this. And, you know, the whole thing when I guess you're a kid is at that point I didn't really understand what the purpose of this was. But, you know, we were commando rolling and crawling in the dark up people's driveways. They weren't supposed to know who was doing this. And obviously at nighttime and as a kid, you kind of create this suspenseful, I guess, idea that, oh gosh, like we don't want anyone to catch us. And, you know, at 10, you don't really understand the meaning behind it. But as the years went on, we continued doing this with these family friends, and they grew older and they moved on, and my family continued the tradition of picking a couple of families each year and I guess spreading this Christmas joy each night as we drove around singing Christmas carols in the car, staying up way past our bedtime and spreading Christmas cheer. So as I got older, I obviously understood more about who these people were that we were picking, that we were giving these gifts to. And they were usually families that had had a hard year, that maybe weren't going to enjoy the Christmas time as everybody else had. Maybe they were going through a trial or a hardship. And so, as I said, my family continued it on, and even now, my husband and I, we continue it on. My husband kind of didn't understand it to begin with, because these are memories that don't only just come up at Christmas time. These are memories that come up all throughout the year, even with that family that we initially started it with, at weddings, at funerals, at anything. We bring up these memories because they were so special and so memorable to us, and it was such a great experience for me as a child. It was an experience that I cannot fathom Christmas being without now. It's amazing, and it's such a time to spread joy and happiness to everyone.
Last up, our podcast producer, Justin Roulon. I wish that I could speak French so that I could just let that roll off my tongue. Justin Roulon. Say hi, Justin.
Bonjour, Madame et Monsieur Coulson. Joyeux Noël et bonne année.
Justin's story is pretty special. I won't spoil it, but take a listen.
So my most memorable Christmas was 4 years ago. My daughter was born in October, and she was actually born with a heart condition that she would have died from had she not been operated on at day 9. After that operation, she spent a month in hospital and came home late November. So that Christmas really drilled into me the fact that Christmas is not really about the stuff. It's great to do presents and all that with the kids, but it's not about the things. It's about the people, and really being thankful for people that we love, being thankful for people in our families, and just having my daughter home for Christmas. That really was my most memorable Christmas.
Okay, Mrs. Happy Families, it's over to you. I'm so glad we got to introduce everyone to our team, and I love their stories. But let's wrap this up with a bang. I want to hear about your favourite Christmas experience.
I'm going to be super cheeky. I have two.
You are always super cheeky. I'm not surprised.
So my first one goes back to 1997.
We weren't even married.
We weren't even married.
There was no Mrs. Happy Families.
But you came and spent Christmas with my family.
Yes, I was living in Mount Isa. I was a radio announcer, came and had Christmas with the Joneses.
You did. And as part of that celebration, we wanted to do something really nice for my parents. You'd grown up in a very different home to me, and my parents had never really had a lot. And one of the things that we talked about, obviously with you being in radio and loving music, was that my parents didn't even have a real stereo system.
They didn't have a CD player. So it's 1997, but they had not.
We just had a little portable one that we could move from room to room.
Didn't have even a half decent sort of sound system.
And so you and I put our heads together and decided we were going to buy them a stereo system.
Which was a huge sacrifice, because I remember when I was working at Hot FM Mount Isa and I was also on 4LM Mount Isa as well. As on both radio stations, my annual income was just over $19,000.
It was pretty tiny back then, wasn't it?
Yeah. So we had to come up with all of that money to buy a stereo system.
Well, I was a full-time student.
Yeah, you were a student and I was earning $20,000 a year.
I wasn't really adding to the kitty at all. So, yeah, it was a really big deal for us. And I remember I don't think we even bought gifts for each other, because we spent
It was everything.
We spent what we, kind of had on them. And for my mum and dad, it was a really big deal. It meant a lot to them. And at the time, while it was a big sacrifice for us, I don't even think it really registered to us just how big a deal it was.
Oh, no, it did to me. That's still one of my favourite Christmas memories, is giving your parents that stereo system, because it occurred to me, I came from a fairly affluent family, and to be giving something that seemed to me to be so basic, so small, something that everybody should have, to your parents, and seeing their overwhelm that we would give them something so gargantuan, that had a decades long impact on me. I still remember it, and it's still magical. Don't have a clue what we got that year, but I absolutely know that we gave a gift that really, it hit the spot.
Well, my second one is completely different.
Yeah, right.
We had a number of children by then. We'd actually just had baby number 4.
Wow. So this is like 2007, Christmas 2007.
And we found out that we were leaving. We'd lived with all of my family close by, and all of a sudden we were up and leaving and driving 10 hours south.
It was more. We'd been in Brisbane for 6 years and we're driving 14 hours down to Wollongong so I can start my PhD.
Yeah. And what I loved about that Christmas was that all of a sudden all the agendas went out the window for everyone because we knew this was a really kind of big deal. We weren't going to see each other in this kind of proximity again for quite some time. And while there'd be family visits and stuff, this was a very different Christmas. And so we talked about this last week actually on the podcast. The day before Christmas, we all got together, my sisters, all the girls in the kitchen, made our Christmas lunch for the next day. And then the next day, everybody showed up. And just the first time I don't ever remember a time where there just was absolute relax and calm. And nobody wanted to leave.
There was lots of food. There was no agenda. And we had a really nice family. It was one of our better family moments because up until that time, there had been some ups and downs, let's be honest. But it was a good experience, wasn't it?
It was.
Well, I'm going to just briefly share my favourite memory of Christmas. And I've got a bajillion to choose from. But the one that I want to share was another one that took me by surprise. Your family does things differently to mine. And I think we'd been married for maybe 2 or 3 years. We had a couple of kids. Maybe we'd just had our third. We might have just had Ella. And in the lead up to Christmas, I think it was Christmas Eve, you said, we're going to go and sing some Christmas carols. And I was kind of like, huh? And we got our kids in the car, and because we're part of a church community, you said, we're going to go and knock on the doors of some of the elderly people in our church congregation that don't have family. And so we went and knocked on their doors on Christmas Eve. It's like 6 o'clock at night, 7 o'clock at night. They'd open the door. And then as a family, which really meant you, me, and our eldest daughter, Chanel, we sang. And it was so awkward. Like I'm standing there a meter away from these people who have just opened their door and I'm singing Silent Night or I'm singing Away in a Manger. And then we'd sing 1 or 2 more songs. Then we'd sing We Wish You a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And that was it. But what was so interesting is once I got past that first 10 seconds of awkward, to watch these elderly people who were lonely as they listened to us sing, their eyes would get all foggy, their glasses would get all foggy, their eyes would fill up with tears. They'd start singing along with us, and then we'd have a little bit of a visit with them and spend some time chatting, and we'd give them the cookies or the gingerbread or whatever it was that we made. And then we'd go to the next home. Maybe we'd spent 15 or 20 minutes with each person, and we visited 3, 4, maybe 5 homes. And then we went home, and I still remember even talking about it right now, the feelings of peacefulness and the feelings of goodness that doing that kind of really, I mean, it's so simple. Bake some cookies, knock on a door, sing a couple of songs, have a chat. And yet it's just such a meaningful thing. So that's one of my favorite memories of magical Christmas, and I've got you to thank for that.
Well, we don't do it every year, but I think that it has definitely made it to the Christmas wish list this year. The kids have asked if we can replicate that one.
I think it's great that the kids are asking, and I'm actually pretty inspired thinking about it. I didn't know that you had it on our list, and I'm so excited. I'm genuinely, just talking about it right now, I'm genuinely excited to think that we can go and do that. So that's a great idea. We really do hope that you've enjoyed the podcast this year. We have one more podcast to go tomorrow as we talk not about what I'll do better tomorrow, but what I'll do better next year. We're going to have a conversation about our learnings from 2020 and what we can take with us into 2021. Please join us tomorrow for the podcast. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks for your ratings and reviews and helping people to find out about the podcast. We appreciate it so much. We thank our team for doing such a great job in sharing their Christmas stories, and especially to Justin Rulon from Bridge Media for the great production work that he's done on the podcast, and for Craig Bruce, our executive producer. If you'd like more information about how we can help make your family happier, all the information that you need is at happyfamilies.com.au.